What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Zantz Russo. How you doing, buddy? I mean, it's an ugly game, but at the same time, a win's a win. I know you did a first 10 earlier today, so the feed will be packed. Not Badlands packed, but it'll be pretty packed for people. They get two episodes in a span of less than 24 hours. But how you feeling?
I'm good, man. Yeah, to your point, we'd be hard pressed to keep up with Badlands with Joe and Connor and all the content that they pump out. But no, I feel good. And yeah, 4-3 is 4-3. No matter how we got here, no matter how ugly it is along the way, you have to be excited that after taking probably the biggest gut punch that the Jets could, 4 offensive snaps into the season, losing Aaron Rodgers, that they're sitting here at 4-3. And you just have to credit the team, the defense, the offense to an extent. Saleh for keeping it together and being able to manage 4 wins out of a gauntlet first 7.
Yeah, man. I had mentally prepared myself for a loss basically the entire game, just because I felt like offensively, like you said, it's gross. And unfortunately, Zach is not good. And I know that this is a huge point of tension amongst the fan base. I root for him. I'm not saying he can't, I don't want him playing. I mean, I know they don't have any other option, but at the same time, it's the last 3 games, 1 offensive touchdown. It's just not a sustainable way to win football games in the NFL on a week-to-week basis. I mean, I know the Steelers are kind of doing something similar, but they need to be scoring at least 2, if not, 3 sometimes. It's just the defense is going to let up at some point, and you have to be prepared for that by scoring. I mean, what are your thoughts on Zach as a whole? Just because it's just pathetic that they can't score. I feel like we've had this conversation for I don't know, basically since 2016, when these offensive struggles have really been a problem. I know obviously there's been spurts of success, but what do you think?
It's really hard to put your finger on and identify how you feel. And I kind of felt that way after Sunday night. You watch that game and it's it set offenses back 100 years. It was tough to watch, and you just had no confidence in either offense to get it done. That's why, I mean, the TOJ slack was all about it. You're like, if the Jets get the 10, if the Jets get the 14, if they can get that second touchdown, the game is over. And then once the Giants scored that to get the 10-7, you're like, oh shit, this is bad news, because you just felt like it wasn't going to get going. And it's been, you're right. It's been such a long time where it just feels like the rest of the NFL is playing a different brand of football than the Jets are. And that's frustrating. So I tweeted it out Sunday night to where I really didn't know how to feel about Zach. I think there's so many things and it's hard to remain objective. I find the fan base clinging to these 1 or 2 plays, 1 or 2 throws, 1 drive to give myself hope for Zach. But I think the reality of it just lies in the entire picture, to where he's just not that great of a quarterback, and you're going to have to accept this for what it is. He's going to have games like this. He's going to have quarters or 2.5, 3-quarter stretches where he plays the way that he did against Kansas City. It's just really frustrating. I will say, I feel like he's made progress. I feel like the progress that he has made there's baby steps, right? He's not throwing the picks. He's gone 150, I think 140, 150 pass attempts without an interception. He's limited the turnovers. Like the sack fumble on the first drive was his fault. The second one, you can't really fault him. It's a driving rainstorm, brand new center, all that. What you can fault him for is the sacks that he's taking. He's got 2.5 seconds back there, not 7. He's got to get rid of the ball. The sack that he took on the what should have been the last drive to Kayvon Thibodeaux, that just can't happen. You can't take that sack to Thibodeaux there. You got to throw it up. I don't know, and I said it on 1st and 10. It feels like there's an unwillingness on his part to scramble and throw the ball out of bounds just to throw it away. It's like they spent so much time getting him to not throw the ball back across his body over the middle of the field into coverage to get picked, that he just thinks that since he can't do that, he's got to take the sack. I don't know what that is, but I just think now this is Zach Wilson, and we're going to have to live and die with him. This is just how it is. I do think there's something to be said for his mentality playing with his back against the wall or when all expectations are gone. I said this on the show as well today. Like, I don't know if you listen to the Michael K show, but Don LaGreca continues to kind of drive this point home. And at first I was a little, like, I don't know, skeptical. Now I kind of see it. He said that Jets down 17-0 against Kansas City. All of a sudden, listen, you're playing with house money, starts firing. Same thing, 24 seconds to go. Listen, we lost this game, starts firing. Maybe there's something to that, but it's on the coaches to tap into that and figure out why that difference is there and get them to play like that for, full quarters in games and not just in little short 30, 20-second spurts.
Yeah, it's really weird, and it's like he's really good when it's no huddle and tempo, but like I don't understand, is it just a mental thing where he's not thinking too much? I mean, I guess because it just seems like they can't get off to a fast start. I think this was the first time that they had a first quarter touchdown all season, and that's crazy. And it's like, look, I understand the conditions were not great, but it hasn't been a rainstorm every game. I know the Pats game was really bad, but overall, it's just it feels like an anchor that's holding this team back. You can't rely on Breece Hall to do everything or Garrett Wilson to make a ridiculous catch every time you throw him the ball. It's like it's never just like those easy plays like you just see other quarterbacks, doesn't matter who it is. Like it's just like they know exactly what they want to do. They get the ball quickly and they're getting yards. It's like I brought this up in our Slack group. It's like, think about like how people would always say certain guys are like garbage time quarterbacks. They always pad up the stat sheet. Zach Wilson doesn't know how to do that. Like he doesn't throw touchdowns. He's 5 touchdowns. What are we? They're 4-3, 7 games into the season, and it's 8 weeks if you think about it, because there's a bit of bye. That's crazy in this modern NFL. I know offense is down across the board, but like they need to score touchdowns, man. Like it sounds so simple, but yet it's so difficult for them. And it's like, my patience is getting thin. Like I'm happy they won. Like it was obviously you take it any way you can get it, and you can never apologize for getting a win. But come on, he's got to be better. They need to score.
When we say like this defense is so good, just imagine what they could do with a second touchdown a game. Like that's all they need. Just get them 2 touchdowns a game, and I think you're going to win a hell of a lot more games than you're going to lose. And the funny thing about Zach is, and this offense is, I think like it's one of those things where every Jets fan can just tell you they just know it. It's like, you can tell within the first 5-10 minutes of watching a game whether Zach's got it or he doesn't. And that's it. And like within seeing it, it's like, well, we're going to grind this one out. Like, and there's no turning it around at that point. But you also can see like when he's locked in and when he has that confidence and that swagger and he gets into a rhythm. So I'm not suggesting that they turn into, Chip Kelly's Oregon Ducks, Eagles offense, Dino Babers, and we're going to run one play every 15 seconds. Like that's insane. But to your point, do they tap into some more up tempo? Because I just think limiting the amount of time that he's got to think obviously is a good thing. I just, whatever they have to do to get him into a little rhythm, make these passes shorter, make them quicker, make them easier to get him into a nice little rhythm, that they have to start figuring that out, because and give him credit for the way that he played in the last 24 seconds in overtime of this game. It wasn't easy for him. It wasn't easy for the offense. There was no running game. You're down 2 linemen. You're makeshifting. You got guys that were just elevated from the practice squad. He had 4 drops. He had some key, some good throws to Lazard that were dropped, some good throws to Conklin that was dropped. So things didn't go his way, but you just knew from the onset, you're like, this game is going to be a grind and this offense is going to struggle to score anything. And if it weren't for a Breece miraculous 50-yard touchdown to where nobody can bring him down, I mean, we'd be singing a whole different tune today.
Yeah, I agree. We actually had a question in the chat from GVH. He basically was asking about Corey Davis. Do you guys buy into the idea of Corey Davis coming back? I actually haven't heard anything about that. Have you? Did that come across your timeline?
I've seen it. Some of those the aggregators, that you're not sure whether or not to trust them. You've heard reports. I don't know if I saw that one of them quoted Florio for saying it. I may be mistaken with that, but do I buy into it? No. Would I welcome him back with open arms? Absolutely. Yes. I think Corey Davis. I like Corey. I think when he was relied upon to be the number one, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, but when he was relied upon to be a number one, I don't think that was the answer. But if he can come back and be piece number 3 here behind Lazard and Garrett Wilson, that's a nice number 3. And I liked him. And I think the other key part is I think him and Zach Wilson really had a good rapport. and that's something that you can rely upon as well. So if he's open to returning, and obviously I think the Jets would be open to having him back, I think that would be key. So A, do I trust it? No. But B, would I absolutely welcome it? Yes, with open arms. Get him back in the building.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's kind of great to think it's a guy that we were kind of down on, that we thought they were going to trade or cut, whatever. He ended up retiring. But to be honest with you, Lazard was considered the guy who's supposed to be a better version of him. And I don't want to like put any disrespect to Allen, because I know, he's a little bit hampered by the quarterback situation, but it's the same frustrations with the drops, the inconsistencies, but they do have the ability to block in the run game, which is great. But they just need all the weapons they can get, because I know that a lot of people are like loving Xavier Gibson, but like, he really hasn't done anything as an offensive player. He's like a couple plays here and there, and that's fine. But like, they just need more juice as an offense. And I think any weapons, which I was like a little bit I was a little bit unhappy that they didn't make any moves to get something, come deadline, which we could talk about a little bit more later. But yeah, I would be open to it. But I ultimately don't think at this point in the season, halfway through, when he's probably not in football shape, that he's coming back. So it would be great, but I think it's more of a pipe dream at this point.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the offensive line, because I think, given where they are right now, all things considered with the conditions on Sunday, I got to give them a lot of credit, especially a guy like Xavier Newman. I mean, you got to think about this. This is not the guys that we expected to see. No AVT now. Obviously, Tippmann has been out for a little bit since the Eagle game, but it seems like he might play this weekend. I don't know. I did also see that Dwayne Brown is actually practicing in full. I think he has a 20 to 21 day window to be activated, but it's good to see that he's practicing in full, because I feel like typically when you're coming back from an injury that's put you on IR, you're going to be limited. So that's good to see. But like, I want to give these guys credit, because it's not an ideal situation. I know Becton didn't have his best game, but I want to give Lakin a lot of credit. We've been very critical of him since dating back to last year, and he's really settled down in 2023. So give him a nice shout out. I know it sucks for Connor McGovern, a guy that Jeff Fans have been embattled with, because I feel like he's been inconsistent. He's said some things in the media that haven't made you feel great, especially about Zach Wilson, especially in his rookie season. But they do deserve a lot of credit, because, I know Kayvon Thibodeau had a great game, but overall, they've allowed, it hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be. Sorry, I couldn't get those words out. But what are your thoughts on the offensive line?
Yeah, their performance was commendable considering all things. And I think, a lot of the sacks were coverage driven and Zach Wilson driven,
Yes.
obviously. So you can't beat them up too bad over that. I thought they could have made a move to get like Ezra Cleveland from Minnesota. I thought getting him for a 6th rounder, just even for depth, considering the state of your offensive line, that seemed like a no-brainer. Am I, excited about Roger Saffold coming in the mix? Mildly. Like, I'm glad that they added a depth piece who's got experience and can at least run block, but he's a 35, 36-year-old guard. So we'll see. I think this, obviously Tippmann's out there at practice today. That's a good sign. Brown, like you said, coming back. Them being, Brown's a left tackle, and them saying that, like, I get it. The guy's approaching 40. Like, you're not going to ask him to switch. Mekhi has shown the ability to go from left side to right side. So you play OL Jenga as best you can and get the best 5 out there. So we'll see what happens. My gut says when healthy, it'll be Brown on the left, Lakin left guard, Tippmann at center, Saffold at right guard, Mekhi at right tackle. And that at least I think allows you to keep your head above water. And I think Saffold's a much better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. So that gives you kind of a better feeling about running along the right side. I think, obviously the Jets, Breece Hall had 12 carries for 17 yards. And the Giants defense is good. Like, give them credit. I think we made them look a lot better than they actually are, but they are a good defense, and they're hot right now too. So, but yeah, that's, that's the biggest thing. And I know, and I've gone back to this a lot. Saleh put the last 6 games of 2022 on the offensive line shoulders, and the health or lack of health of that unit so much. And we're repeating the same story again. We're watching the same movie. So how they can sustain and hold up with these injuries and what they do to kind of play musical chairs is going to be key.
Yeah, I unfortunately feel like it literally is deja vu. I feel like we're literally living that same world. Like they're gonna like we could win this week and it could be like that all-time high. You know, they could be 2 games over 500 at this point in the season, but like something is going to flip because you got to score points. You can't rely on the defense. Like the defense has been fortunate to be healthy for the most part, and
Yeah.
that's not a
Again.
sustainable. I know it's not a sustainable thing. I know that they've been less healthy this year compared to last. I mean, obviously the
Losing
corners
Al
have missed some
Woods.
time. Al Woods, but yeah, he's more of a rotational piece, not like an every down player. But yeah, it's the offensive line. It's like if this keeps happening, it's going to be a problem because Zach is just going to get crushed and he's going to move around and make bad plays. Like I don't want to like completely discredit his ability to not throw an interception for, you know, X amount of snaps, like you said before, but like I think it's partially because he's just being so safe. And eventually when the offensive line just collapses, if they don't get healthy or they just can't protect him, those turnovers are going to come. I mean, we did see 2 fumbles last week.
Yes.
But let's hope that reinforcements come in and it stabilizes a little bit. I mean, every team deals with it, and how you handle that adversity is really what defines you as a team. It can ultimately make you a team that's on the outside looking in, or a team that's sneaking into the playoffs and breaking this 13-year drought, because it's frustrating, man. I just want to see it end.
No, and I agree, and I think, you know, getting your best 5 out there is something that obviously the Jets have to do. The Becton, Brown, left tackle, right tackle, you got to take like what your best average would be. So I think Mekhi Becton is a better right tackle than Dwayne Brown would be. So you take the best average score there. It just makes sense. And the Jets just don't have that luxury. Like Mekhi Becton played extremely well at left tackle for the first 6 games. He didn't even play. I don't think he played that badly. I think, like I said, I think Thibodeau had a great day, but I think a lot of that was coverage and Zach Wilson driven. But you don't have that luxury anymore to kind of say, you know what, we're gonna bring Dwayne Brown back slowly and we'll work him in. And if Mekhi's still doing well at left tackle, then we'll keep Dwayne Brown as a 6th man. Like you can't do that anymore. Like we're in dire straits right now. Your backs are against the wall. You need to get your best 5 out there to protect this kid. And listen, I don't think the Chargers defense is the greatest defense in the world, but you still got 2 pretty damn good defensive ends out there that scare the hell out of me. So you got to get out there and protect that kid.
Yeah. You don't want him to be held out to dry. Before we get more into, I guess the Charger game, I wanted to ask you just your overall thoughts about the deadline, because it was uneventful. They didn't do anything. And I know everyone was just waiting for the move. They're looking at Twitter all day and just like nothing happens. But like ultimately, in my opinion, like who are you really going to get? I mean, Ezra Cleveland was a guy you mentioned before. A receiver would have been nice. Some sort of, depth piece would have been great. But like I would have wanted a backup quarterback. Like if they could have got like Jacoby Brissett, that would have been great. But like, what were your expectations? And then I know you had asked Joe on Saturday his thoughts about like coach and GM combinations dating back, like is your lifetime as a Jets fan. So we can transition to that of how Douglas and Salah fall. But what were your overall thoughts on the deadline? And then we'll unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, thoughts on the deadline, I think expected but disappointed still, right? I was kind of hoping that they would make a splash play, something. But even looking at the moves, I just think it always kind of falls short of expectation. And I don't really know what moves were out there for the Jets to really make. I mean, outside, listen, Ezra Cleveland, a guard, for depth would have been great. Donovan Peoples-Jones got moved. Is he really going to move the needle for this offense? Probably not. The dream would have been like getting Devontae Adams or Mike Evans. Not going to happen, but the hope is that Devontae comes here in the offseason, right? Because that story is being written right now. But yeah, the bigger story would have been the Jets getting a backup quarterback, and I think Jacoby Brissett would have been perfect. And I think that's someone that could come in and actually challenge Zach and would have been a good fit for this offense and this team down the stretch that could really keep your head above water and be confident in that, and being hopeful for an Aaron Rodgers return and, late season, whatever, week 16, 17, 18, whatever that is. What are your thoughts overall? I mean, I think Joe Douglas is a little more cautious on the trigger anyways. I wasn't expecting anything, but what were your feelings as the deadline approached and then went by with nothing happening?
Yeah, like again, wanted something but didn't expect anything. So I kind of felt like, indifferent at this point. It's just it's not really his move. He doesn't do that. Like, and they're not at a place like if they had Aaron Rodgers, I think that they probably would have made a move. I think those reports that came out that they like tried to make a move for Evans, or they tried to make a move for Devontae Adams. I don't buy them. I know they spoke to the Buccaneers in August about Mike Evans, but I don't think they really made any serious inquiries now. And as far as Devontae Adams, it seemed like because of the turnover that happened in Vegas, I don't think that they actually had any contact because they weren't taking calls. So it would have been nice to get some depth and in adding some players that can maybe help. But again, they're not, 6-2 right now. So I understand that it wasn't worth it to get a rental that you may not have next year. But again, we'll see what happens as the season continues to, unfold. There's still a lot of football to be played, but yeah, it was just kind of as expected. I wanted to talk about just like your question to Joe about how we feel with coaches and GMs dating back to, our lifetime as Jets fans. So for me, 31 years old, basically my first real regime that I cared about this team was Herm and Bradaway. But like, obviously I know Parcells, and I got to give him the respect that he deserves because he was probably the best overall coach that we've had. So I'm going to put him at the top. From a GM standpoint, I mean, I think Tannenbaum was the best GM that we had in my lifetime. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so Chaparoso does his Saturday AM question. So I asked him what his favorite coaches were in his lifetime as a Jets fan and where Saleh kind of ranks. My list, and we'll go GMs after this, but my list went Parcells 1. I know people have a sour taste about Parcells just because of him and his kind of animosity and weirdness towards the Jets, especially when there was that 30 for 30 with him and Belichick. But when you look at Parcells and what he did as a head coach, taking this team from 1-15 to conference championship in 2 years,
should have been the Super Bowl too.
Should have been the Super Bowl. And people I'll go off on a tangent for a second. People always point to the 2010 season like we would have run through Green Bay. And I'm not so sure that would have it would have been a dogfight, but I'm not so sure we would have won. I'm confident that if we played Atlanta in that 99 Super Bowl, we would have smoked them. We beat them 28-3 that year. Like that would have, if we had hung on to that lead, that third quarter lead against Denver in that 98 AFC championship, that banner's hanging up, man. No question. So 2 and 3, I think, are interchangeable. And this is where I differ from Joe. Joe had Rex 2 and Herm 3. I have Herm 2 and Rex 3. I think Herm, 3 out of 5 years he was coach, he made the playoffs. I think he had more sustainable success than Rex. Rex had a really flashy 2 years that dropped off a cliff after that and couldn't really sustain that. I think Herm was a better overall coach. Similar defensive-minded, rah-rah guys, players, coaches, but I just think Herm overall was a better coach. Even though he didn't get to the conference championships, we were a stone's throw away twice. After that, I put Saleh. And I really, I'm going with feeling and emotion on that one, but I put Saleh ahead of Mangini. I like Mangini, the talent evaluator. I think as a coach, he wasn't as good. He had a really good first season, but I think he grew thin on the team, especially in 2008. And then after that, you go Al Groh in his one stint. You go Bowles after that, who really just didn't impress. I mean, outside of 2015, he was just not a good coach at all. Still isn't. I put Pete Carroll in the mix. I watched one season of him, man. He had that team at 6-5. They were ready to go, then collapsed down the stretch. That was the fake spike game. That was his demise. And then I put Kotite ahead of Adam Gase, and that's my list. So you got Parcells, Herm, Rex, Saleh, Mangini, Groh, Bowles, Pete Carroll, Kotite, and then Adam Gase. I remember a little bit of Coslet, but I'd be going based off of what my dad told me about him as opposed to what I actually felt. But
yeah, that's kind of for me. Like I was alive when Pete was the coach. I was alive when Kotite was the coach. But I wasn't really paying attention. Really, Herm was the first coach that I really started caring about the team.
Yep.
But I'll say just based on, I'll go 2000 and on, just because that's yeah. I mean, look, I don't try to. 2006 is really the first season that I started to just always be locked in the way I am now. But I obviously cared before that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's for me. It would be Rex 1, be Herm 2, Mangini, Saleh. Who else was missing? Bowles, Groh, Gase. That's it for me.
Okay.
As far as general managers, I mean, Itzik and McCagnon are at the bottom. They're tied. I can't even really say one's worse than the other. Both were really bad. And then I guess Bradway, and then I guess Mr. T would definitely be number one.
Tanny won. Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like, Joe Douglas gets all this praise for being the best Jets GM, but really doesn't have much competition. But Tanny won. Yeah, Douglas probably.
Douglas is 3. I skipped Douglas. I'm an idiot. Douglas is 3.
So Bradway, he was okay. The one that always gets me is the Santana Moss Lavernius Coles thing. Like you had them both, and you traded them. You traded Lavernius away, and then you end up trading Santana away to get Lavernius back. And the Dwayne Robinson trade up was just, I did not like that at all. And then eventually, I just think they just realized he wasn't good at GMing, and they kind of just swapped roles where they had Tannenbaum, who was like the salary cap guru, just take over as full-time GM, and Bradway kind of snuck back and went to, like scouting, something like that. But yeah, it was, for me, Parcells won. I mean, what he did in 97 on, he set that team up for that run from 97 to 2010 with the way that he built the staff, built everything within that organization, and drafted. So he's one. You got to put Tanny 2, Douglas 3, and then from there it's Bradway, Idsick, and McCagnon. I'd probably put McCagnon over Idsick, right? I mean, he.
It's funny you say that, but like, I think it's only because Idsick was so short.
Yeah,
so it's like it's kind of incomplete. But dude, McCagnon after 2015 was so bad.
I know.
It's like he had the 10. Yeah, it's hard.
We have to have Joe bring back the chart, the color-coded chart of like players that he drafted that were 27 years old and older and not in the NFL. Like after 1 year of playing with the Jets, that was ugly.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give Idsick. He did draft Sheldon Richardson, who won Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
He did draft Geno Smith, who ended up being a Pro Bowl quarterback.
That's it, man. That's
you
your
saw
specialty.
Something, and then Quincy Enunwa was the other guy that actually was decent that he drafted.
Couldn't stay healthy.
Couldn't stay healthy, but was a good player when he was on the field. But yeah, I mean, McCagnon, I think, was just so bad because it was just a prolonged, sadness of player acquisition. I mean, the Jermaine Johnson contract is so bad. It's like, it wasn't even that long ago, and I just tried to erase it from my memory.
Oh, it was so bad. Yeah, so bad.
It was. Okay, quick hitter. If Jimmy G gets cut by the Raiders, because it sounds like they don't want to pay him, would you want to sign him?
Yes.
Okay, me too.
100%. He's better than Simeon. And I mean, what he did on Monday night was laughable. Like, I mean, I could have hit those.
I think he's a little hurt, but like if he got
healthy, think so too. But he's at 1,000% better than Simeon and Tim Boyle. So yes, you do it.
And Zach Wilson.
Yes, but it's not a long-term move. Like you would do it for this season, for the duration of this season, and you'd feel better about your quarterback room than you do right now.
Just have a ripcord if you have to.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
It. Okay. Glad we're aligned there. All right. biggest X factor for the Jets as they move towards this Monday Night Football matchup against the Chargers.
Oh boy. This question comes every week and it still catches me off guard. I feel like I always go Breece Hall. No, I'm gonna say Garrett Wilson. It's so obvious, but I just feel like the way the Jets offense is going right now, I feel like the key to them winning is scoring 2 touchdowns. And I think you can rely on Breece for more this week because I don't think the Chargers run defense is that good. So I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. I think he had probably the quietest 7 for 100 game that you could have had on Sunday. But I think Garrett Wilson is kind of the game breaker that could take one to the house this week and break the game wide open. I don't think the Chargers secondary, I don't think their defense is very good. So if he could take and have just kind of a big game where he gets, the 6, 7, 8 for over 100 and a touchdown. If he gets himself in the end zone, I think the Jets can comfortably win. And I think Garrett Wilson's probably the biggest X factor in this game.
Yeah, it's amazing he had 100 yards last week. Like I don't even know how that happened.
I know.
Mine's actually Michael Carter II, and the reason I say that is because
the second. I'm sorry, I made a face. I thought you meant the running back.
No, not Michael Carter.
Michael
Carter, the slot corner, because. What they're going to try to do is to keep Keenan Allen in the slot, and that's somewhere that he is comfortable playing, and they don't want him to, be shadowed by Sauce or DJ Reed. So I think that they're going to try to challenge Michael Carter, even though he's been up to the challenge all year. He's been one of the best corners in the league, not just slot corners. Corners, when you look at that chart, showing the separation that they've had against receivers. So I think he's the X factor. If he can contain Keenan Allen, it's going to really, mitigate their pass game because they don't have Mike Williams. Quentin Johnson hasn't been very good. Josh Palmer, solid guy. Their tight ends are solid, but I think Eckler's also going to hurt them with those short passes. And we've seen a lot of teams have success doing those quick passes to running backs, specifically in the Denver game, which was frustrating. But yeah, I think if MC2 can really hold it down in the slot, it's going to be a tough day for Justin Herbert. Who would be the guy, I guess, on the Chargers? It doesn't have to be an X factor, but the guy that scares you the most on their end?
It's their defensive ends.
Okay.
It's Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. If the state of the Jets offensive line, if there's people that can wreck this game for the Jets, I mean, I think points are going to be at a premium, and that's the way that they do it, is if they can get pressure on Zach Wilson and sack him, which is going to happen. He just takes sacks. That's what he does. But if they can make it a living hell for Zach back there, and if he has to drop back a lot, and you're looking at 3rd and longs and they're getting after him, I think that could be the point of differentiation for a Chargers defense that, I think outside of that really isn't that great.
Yeah. I mean, I'm terrified of Joey Bosa. He's really, really good. I mean, he's not Nick Bosa good, but he's still really good.
Yeah.
Khalil Mack scares me, even though he's a little bit older. I'm going to go back to Eckler, though. I just feel like he's the kind of guy that can make you just die by a million knives or whatever. It's just
death by 1,000 cuts. Yes.
I can never remember. And thank you. Death by 1,000 cuts, just because they know it's going to be difficult to push the ball down the field. And Eckler's so explosive and elusive when he gets the ball in his hands in space. And I feel like they're going to try to test the Jets there. I do think they're going to be able to run the ball against us. I think him and Josh Kelly will make a nice, 1-2 punch. I mean, Saquon was all over us, and now that Al Woods is out for the season, I'm a little worried about how we fare against the run. But I think, if they can get some consistent pressure on Herbert, because that offensive line is not good, it's going to be hard for the Chargers. And their offense has been really up and down. And I do think that Robert Saleh, even though I have questions about him as the full long-term coach, I think that he's a better coach than Staley. I think Staley has proven that he is, underachieving with a really good roster. So I think if they can win, the coaching matchup, I think that's how they win this game. So we'll move to predictions. What do you think happens on Monday night?
I saw the tweet from New York Jets history about the 44-13 Jets win in San Diego in 2002, which just, I said, I'm like, my newly reconstructed heart could really, really use a game like this. It'd be nice to just get a nice, easy, comfy win. It's not going to be like that. I think the Jets are going to have to grind it out. I do feel oddly confident about this game, though, all things considered. I think obviously the weather looks a little better, which makes me happier because I'm tired of watching just monsoons at MetLife. But I just feel confident in this game. I think the offense will be able to do enough against a not very good Chargers defense. Justin Herbert is a much better quarterback than Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito, but I do still think that the Jets defense is good enough to be able to keep him in check. I think that the Jets are finally able to score 2 touchdowns in one game. I think Breece Hall gets one. I think Garrett Wilson gets one. I think they also get 2 field goals. I think the special teams is lights out yet again. And I think it's just the thing with the Chargers traveling after a Sunday night game all the way to the East for Monday night. That's a lot. So I think the Jets pull this one out, but I still think it's close, 20-17 Jets.
Okay. I like it. I think that they will win as well. And I just feel like a home underdog is always something to, just keep in mind. I think the defense is going to be really good. I do think that they will give up some points because, like I said, I think they'll be vulnerable in the run game. But I do think the Jets could somehow eke this out. I could say 16-13. They get 2 touchdowns. Maybe they miss an extra point or something like that. I don't know.
How dare you about Greg DeLay? He doesn't miss.
I don't know.
He doesn't miss.
The specials have been so good that I just feel like we're due for one of those games, and that's where the offense is going to have to pick up the slack. I do want to give him and Morstead a huge shout out. They both have been outstanding. Morstead literally was unbelievable. He was the Jets' best player on Sunday.
He was, without a doubt, the Jets' best player on Sunday. Absolutely.
And I just love how he's he just embraced the fan base because they appreciate him so much. When we think about what Braden Mann, we probably lose 2 games because if Braden Mann saw the punt, easily.
1000%. And then you think back to the Jets actually win 2 games if Thomas Morstead was their punter last year. They don't lose that Detroit game, and they probably don't lose the New England game either. It's crazy. And he's got to be the most celebrated punter in the history of the NFL just because he could punt the ball for the New York Jets and not be Braden Mann.
Since, what's his name?
Ray Guy.
Tom Tupa.
Tom
Tupa. Playing quarterback.
Oh my God. Yeah. Tom Tuba was fantastic.
Really
As
quick,
well.
like, should we talk about the worst punters that we've had? I mean, Braden
Oh.
Mann is up there, Lachlan Edwards,
Mhm.
TJ Quigley, Reggie Hodges.
Wow. I'm giving you a ton of credit. Some of these guys I haven't even remembered until you said their name. Steve Weatherford was
Weatherford,
good.
he
Weatherford
was
was good.
good.
He
Weatherford
was
was
good.
good.
He brought out the shake weights at on Hard Knocks at practice. Like that was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other ones we've had. Didn't
I
we
don't
have a
know,
guy
man.
named wasn't it Ryan Malone or something like
Yeah,
that?
something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, it hasn't been pretty. It
Mm-mm.
has not been pretty. Any closing thoughts as we get to Chargers Monday Night
No,
Football?
I'm happy to be. I always say no, and then I have more thoughts. But I'm happy to be back with you. It's good that we're getting a more static schedule going here. But listen, 4-3 is 4-3. Be happy, like Bill Parcells said. You are what your record says you are. The AFC conference is muddled with just mediocre teams. No one's pulling away. It's there to be had. The Jets they beat Buffalo. They went toe to toe with Kansas City. The Eagles are out of conference, but you beat Philadelphia, who's probably the best team in the NFC. You can play with anybody. Just be able to keep your head above water. Celebrate every win, gut it out, grind it out any way that you can. Like, let's just get ourselves to 5-3 anyway. Any way that you can, give yourself a fighting chance. I think, you know, I don't know. We looked at this 3-game stretch. Like, this is the easy part of it. The Giants proved to be a lot tougher than I think any of us thought it would have been.
Can
But
complete a pass.
let's start to see, Saleh said, he's like, I got unwavering confidence in this offense. Like, we are hanging by a thread here, bro. So
Dude, he's fucking lying, man.
let,
I can't listen to that crap anymore.
let us see some of it. Like, just give us a little more confidence. Get us to 2 touchdowns. Just 2 touchdowns. That's all we want. Just two. That's all we want. Those are my closing thoughts. Appreciate everyone being with us and kind of hanging with us through the scheduling snafus that we've had.
Yes, it's been inconsistent. We apologize as we did last week, but make sure to subscribe on YouTube. If you get this show, you get clips of Badlands and any other just shorts. Make sure to subscribe to our feed on Apple, Spotify, Google, or Amazon. Anywhere you guys get your podcasts, make sure to give us a review. We appreciate that. It goes a long way for the show. And last but certainly not least, if you've not become a Badlands Patreon subscriber, now's the time. Best Jets content out there. You get stuff basically every day, whether it's written, video, or audio. I know they will also tease that Jerko Cotchery is going to be on the feed next week, which is awesome. All-time Jet, one of my favorites. Yeah, it's hard not to like the guy. And also that the tailgate for the Falcons game will be happening, and it should be a lot of fun, sponsored by Profit Exchange and Chitty's Cheesesteaks. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate everyone being patient with our scheduling because it is crazy. And we'll talk to you guys next week.